So I did this when the gameplay at the PlayStation Showcase came out for Marvel Spider-Man 2, so let's do it one more time for the story trailer. Now that it finally has been released and I broke it down, we had time to digest it, all that good stuff, you know. Today we're going to be going over a plot leak we had come out by now 3 months ago it came out, and we're going to be comparing it to the new story trailer. And you know, like, we're going to talk about it, see if it's accurate, compare both of them, see like how accurate it is in any way, shape, or form. Know that obviously if you do not want the story spoiled for you, you probably don't want to watch this video. But if you're like me, the way I think about it is this is interesting to talk about because, like, I mean, it could be real, it could be fake, all of it could be fake, all of it could be real. But then again, when I actually play it personally, I don't really feel spoiled. I feel like, oh shit, so that was true, or like that wasn't true, or you know, that's really cool, etc. But either way, yeah, last warning, if you don't want to be spoiled for the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2 potentially, go watch my Daredevil video or something, or just click off, I don't know. Actually, yeah, go watch my Daredevil video or something. Show that shit some love, because I don't know. It's a good video about a new villain we might see in the MCU, which I think sounds very cool. Anyway, yeah, let's get on with this. You've been warned. So I'm gonna read the leak to you, and you know, we can compare it to the trailer as you know we read it. Keep in mind this leak did come out before the story trailer, and as well it came out before the gameplay reveal. According to the rumor, the game begins with Pete and Miles trying to hunt down a serial killer on the loose. The catch is that the serial killer is Yuri from the last game. She's the serial killer and is killing bad guys in the name of justice. It's during these missions that a tension between Peter and Miles is supposedly established, as Pete tells Miles to leave it to him. Given the dangerous nature of the investigation, this apparently foreshadows a struggle between the two later in the game. Okay, so now with that, we do know Wraith is in the game because we've seen her in the Kraven trailer on the tablet, and as well we've seen her in the story trailer in this scene. That's her right there if you didn't know. So Wraith is in the game, that adds up. The thing is, this would make sense because in the Venom origin story in the comics, there was a serial killer who goes by Sin Eater, and he was the beginning of the Venom origin story essentially. So this seems to add up, and seems like, you know, they did kind of take inspiration from the original story in the comics. And the fact that they made this serial killer have a personal tie to Peter in a new and different way makes this even better, since as you probably already know, Wraith is Yuri Watanabe, aka Spider-Man's former cop buddy from Spider-Man PS4, and if you don't remember, she was in the DLC for that game and ended up attempting to kill Hammerhead and ended up actually killing one of his crew members, I believe it was, or someone in the Mafia by the end of the DLC. So far Insomniac has set this up perfectly as far as Yuri, Wraith, and this does seem to be accurate, and likely the game will pick up with Yuri killing criminals while having Pete and Miles searching for her. But with that, due to Pete's personal connection, he wants to do this on his own and wants Miles to leave it alone and, you know, let Pete do his thing. So now that last part alone potentially helps set up another aspect of the story, which we're about to go over in the next part of the leak. The next part says, the rumor continues, claiming Peter gets the symbiote early in the game when Harry comes home from quote-unquote Europe, after it sneaks into MJ's purse and then onto Peter later. Not long after getting the black suit, Peter defeats Yuri with the help of Miles, ending the first act of the game. So I feel like this part can be a little questionable because of a couple of things, but there's different possibilities. I think it was said at some point we would get the symbiote early on in the game, and I mean, it would make sense to get it pretty early. That's kind of how these stories are done best. Like, you know, give the symbiote to Pete as quick as possible to, you know, let symbiote Spider-Man breathe and evolve essentially. The part where it sneaks onto MJ's purse, then onto Peter, I feel like that's possible, but it's questionable because, like, okay, so obviously at the end of the Miles Morales post-credit scene, we know Norman was like to Connors, you know, I want him out now, referring to Harry, of course. The thing we don't necessarily know yet is how long has Harry been out of the tank, and like, you know, what exactly is going on with the symbiote at that point in the story with Harry too. Like, after he gets out of the tank, is he just healed and healthy, full head of hair, as we see in the trailer? Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, at the same time, we actually do get actual footage of Harry in like present time the game takes place with the scene at Coney Island. Oh my god, holy shit. Okay, crazy realization. You know what I just thought of? Maybe that is where Pete gets the symbiote initially, but it doesn't affect him right away yet. So I think so far, this is what happens in Act 1, and like, you know, rough idea. So I think Wraith begins to, you know, wreak havoc. Harry comes home from Europe, and we sometime get that Coney Island scene. Then symbiote Pete happens, defeats Wraith. Obviously, you know, there's more in between we don't necessarily know of yet, but but I think Act 1, that's Act 1 in a nutshell. And also for the Wraith part, speaking of Wraith, right, maybe that prison break with Martin Lee happens around there, or maybe not. We don't really know, but we do know it's before or after Symbiote Peter, because behind Miles in the trailer, we see Pete in his advanced suit, unless, maybe they edited it, but who knows. But I think it would make more sense for it to happen before Symbiote Peter, because Wraith is assumingly the beginning of the game, and she wants to kill criminals. Is she willing to go as far as to breaking into prison just to kill some, or is she also murdering ones that are free, or both maybe? Or what if she's trying to break into prison to get someone specifically? Who knows? Maybe Hammerhead, because he's in prison. I don't know, just throwing ideas out there. But with that, I'm thinking though, maybe that's what Miles is doing while Pete handles Wraith. So maybe Miles is dealing with Martin Lee, but we don't really know if he gets freed, gets his powers or anything. We just seem to know he's in his prison jumpsuit, and Miles seems very upset for Lee killing his dad back in Spider-Man PS4, so he's confronting him about it. And something I want to highlight for later, hopefully I remember to bring this up, but it did say Miles helps Yuri defeat Wraith, so remember that for later. That's important. Kind of lost track. Okay, so symbiote. I was thinking, would Norman want Harry walking around willy-nilly with the symbiote, or just leave it in the tank? But Harry has a disease, and assumingly while Harry doesn't have the symbiote, his disease starts to kick back in. And as well, we do kind of get a scene of Harry limping and upset, so assumingly he's mad he doesn't have the symbiote to heal himself, but that's just speculation on my part at least. I'll also show whatever scenes I think likely take place in Act 1. Obviously, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm just, basing it off putting the story together, but also this plot leak. So the Wraith is, likely the beginning of the story. The prison break with Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, is probably the beginning too, and I think has to do with the Wraith. And I just explained why that's likely the beginning of the game. So on to the next part, it says, the next act begins with Osborn. It doesn't specify which one, but assumingly Norman. Norman hires Kraven to kill Peter and Miles because he's worried about Peter's new abilities and Miles' electric powers too. Things don't go well for Kraven, who quickly turns to brutal tactics, going rogue in the process before being defeated. After defeating Kraven, Miles and Peter go to the classic bell tower to get rid of the suit, and during this, Kraven escapes. Okay, so assumingly this is the entire Act 2 because it doesn't specify it, and right around here is where someone becomes Venom, and obviously, we'll get to that part eventually. Now let's point out the obvious. Lizard is not included in this plot leak, and he was featured in the gameplay reveal, which, obviously did come out after this plot leak. And, assumingly the gameplay reveal does take place in the middle of the game, as did Mr. Negative, who was promoted a lot for Spider-Man PS4. I think Kraven is the Mr. Negative of this game as far as their roles in the story. Wait, actually, hold on. Let me look something up. Holy shit, actually, yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, that's true. Mr. Negative was the catalyst for Spider-Man PS4, right? And they confirmed Kraven is the catalyst of this story. So yeah, that makes sense. That kind of adds up. So the gameplay reveal is likely in somewhere in the middle of the game. So now Lizard. I feel like they wanted to save Lizard for a surprise, so they really tried to keep that wrapped up good. But who knows? Obviously, they try to keep everything under wraps, or most things under wraps, but some things slip out, others don't. Who knows? So Norman hiring Kraven to hunt both Spider-Man makes sense for two reasons. So I personally don't think Norman is concerned about Spider-Man's powers. It's more of he has a symbiote and I want it back to, help my son. I think that's what it is for Peter. But now Miles, I think Miles is the interesting variable. Why is Norman after Miles? What does Miles have to do with Norman? Now this isn't confirmed, but I think this theory is true and makes the most sense. So if you remember from Spider-Man PS4, the MJ mission where we had to sneak into Norman's lab, right? Remember that? We seen Norman was trying to recreate Spider-Man's powers. Why? I don't know. We don't really know the specific reason of that yet. But with that, this is how the spider got to Miles and bit him to make him become Spider-Man. The spider hopped onto MJ and eventually it got to Miles. Kind of like how assumingly the symbiote is going to go from Harry to MJ to Peter, so they're reusing that if that's true at least. But eventually Norman would take notice, wait, there's a spider missing from my lab, and then this new Spider-Man pops up and he has electric powers, and the spider that I had bioelectricity, genetically modified or something. Can't be a coincidence. Norman probably wants to capture Miles to study him since likely his genetically modified spiders work when they bite someone and give them spider powers. And I say likely because obviously he's not 110% sure. He wasn't there when it happened, you know, but he knows it's likely from his spider that just went missing, you know what I mean? And obviously, you know, we the audience know, but like he doesn't 110% know like we do. Now for Kraven and Lizard, so Kraven is on contract with Norman to capture whatever it is, both Spider-Men. I would assume it's probably kill Peter and then capture Miles, but I don't know. Keep in mind though, Peter has the symbiote at this point. Now, I think what may happen here, and this is speculation on my part, but something along the lines of Kraven goes after the Spider-Man, realizes he can't beat them without turning to his normal brutal tactics. So, you know, he goes rogue by breaking the contract. But I also have a second theory or a second reason why he may go rogue on the contract or whatever. So here's my theory. The Lizard thing happens somehow, some way, however it happens, right? Kraven finds out or realizes, you know, the Lizard is a thing, but he also maybe learns the Lizard is valuable to Norman and the Spider-Man, so he's hunting Lizard because he means something to all three of those characters. But at the same time, obviously, you know, Lizard is an animal and Kraven hunts animals, so it could be like a double-edged sword essentially, a two birds one stone if you will. Oh, also speaking of the gameplay reveal, let's talk about that real quick. So in that, Miles did say to Pete,
"Hey man, new threads?"
questioning or like implying he's never seen the symbiote costume Peter has. And this means likely Miles hasn't seen Peter since Pete told Miles to lay off the Wraith situation and, you know, let him handle it. So with that, seemingly Peter does that by himself. And, you know, keep in mind, Peter gets the symbiote early on in the game and it helps him defeat Wraith. So yeah, likely Miles wasn't involved with the Wraith situation because it does say, or did say, Miles helps Yuri defeat Wraith. And Pete had the symbiote when he defeated Wraith apparently. But Miles just said new threads as if he'd never seen the costume before in the gameplay reveal. But we do know Insomniac likes to, you know, edit trailers to misdirect us, so who knows. But that's what I personally think. Maybe though, this is where we see him focusing on Martin Lee or Mr. Negative possibly, and also where we may see Miles stress about trying to get into college and things of that nature. So what I think happened is probably Miles did lay off Wraith and he was busy with Mr. Negative college and they met up again when Lizard became a thing, hence why Miles maybe said new threads, question mark. Eventually, Kraven gets defeated, and assumingly around this point, symbiote Spider-Man tries to kill Kraven maybe, or something like that happens along those lines. Also, assumingly Peter and Miles will get into a fight because we have got some hints they may not be in the best relationship status at some point in the game, and somewhere in this act is where all of these scenes likely take place, like this one of MJ running from Peter, this one of symbiote Peter doing his exploding move while Harry's in the background pushing some sort of button, this one of symbiote Peter trying to take down Lizard, and whatever other scenes I throw here, I'll mark it down on the screen somewhere saying which other scenes I forgot to mention likely take place in Act 2. So yeah, with that, Kraven gets defeated and Pete gets rid of the symbiote at the classic bell tower with Miles, and that's seemingly the end of Act 2. Alright, so now before we get on to the rest, because this shit's about to get messy, real messy, let's kind of just recap everything, okay? So Act 1 seems likely to be Wraith and possibly Mr. Negative. Harry comes home from Europe, Pete and Harry talk, then MJ, Pete and Miles, Genki, and Harry meet up at Coney Island. This is likely where Peter gets the symbiote, I would assume at least. Wraith maybe, you know, causes some havoc at the prison or something. That's speculation on my part. And, you know, Mr. Negative maybe gets free or something. Again, speculation on my part, we'll see. But dealing with Wraith, Pete tells Miles, let him handle Wraith. So, you know, Miles goes off and does his thing. The symbiote starts to affect Peter. Peter defeats Wraith on his own with the symbiote. Then Act 2. And the order of this could be wrong, but, you know, assumingly Lizard likely happens first, because the way I see it is like, you know, Peter is already trying to get Connors to help Harry. Maybe Pete doesn't know Harry needs specifically the symbiote, or maybe he does and doesn't want to give it up. Who knows? We'll see. Then Norman hires Kraven to take down Spider-Man because, you know, now he has wind of Spider-Man having the symbiote, but Kraven can't. So Kraven goes rogue, maybe starts hunting Lizard instead just because, or like to get back at all three of them, the Spider-Man and Norman. Like I said earlier, my theory about Lizard meaning something to all three of them, so maybe that's why Kraven's hunting Lizard. Maybe that's a possibility, who knows. Assumingly, eventually, they fix Connor's lizard problem, then Pete tries to take down Craven, or does, and Miles stops Pete from doing something he might have regretted. Again, speculation on my part, we'll see. Then they go to get rid of the suit from Peter at the bell tower. Craven escapes. Okay, so that's how the story seems to be going so far. Now let's get into the messy shit. Jesus Christ. I might have to make a part 2. We'll see. I gotta finish recording this entire thing, then cut it down, see how long the video is. And if I end the video here, the video is too long for one video, I feel like, personally. And there's a lot more shit to get into. Like there's a lot, I'm telling you. And you know, I'm usually not about making videos into multiple parts. I try to squeeze everything into one video, or multiple things in one video. So this might be the rare occasion where I actually do make multiple parts for one whole video concept. But you know, we'll see. Okay, yeah guys, this video is gonna be super long for one video if I were to make it one video. And that's because like there's a lot to say and take into factor, and there's so many things in front of us. And you know, that's kind of what I do. I try to put everything together that's right in front of us, and you know, analyze as much of it as I can, and you know, put everything together. But again, I do want to reiterate this. I don't usually make multiple parts to one video concept, but this is a rare occasion where, you know, I think I'll have to do it. So likely by the time you guys see this, I'm working on part 2, and that will be out soon, probably the day after, or maybe 2 days later, who knows, we'll see. But they'll definitely come out in the same week, so make sure to check that out when that does end up being done and uploaded. And I promise it'll be worth it. There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about for the ending of this plot leak to like really determine whether or not it's accurate. But with that, what do you think so far of the first half of the plot leak and how accurate it is to the story trailer so far? Make sure to comment your opinion down below so I can discuss all of that with you in the comment section. Thank you for taking time out every day to click on this video, and if you made it to this far, thank you. If you're new to the channel, I cover Spider-Man related scoops, rumors, leaks, confirmations for the games, movies, TV shows, and I try to upload as much as I can. Again, part 2 will be up soon, guys. Don't worry, you know, just be on the lookout for that. So if any of that interests you, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers. If you want more of this type of content, leave a like on the video. Don't forget to check out my latest video on the left if you haven't already. I hope you have had a good day and that you enjoyed the video. Until next time.